Alright everyone, welcome back. Last time we were working on the silo, we just finished up the masonry on the inside and used an excavator to dig out the back side of this retaining wall. Our goal in this video is to rebuild this retaining wall and then pour a concrete cap on top. And this is to make it structural enough to support our entryway, mainly the beams that we'll have resting on it. We already removed the loose rocks and mortar while we had the excavator out the other day. So we started mixing up a batch of mortar and then gathering some rocks and getting to work. We got pretty good at mortaring after doing it for a couple weeks now, but this is our first time actually rebuilding a fieldstone wall. This spot in particular near the barn was the worst part of the wall, and that is because this barn roof had no gutters on it over the many years, which caused a lot of erosion to take place right underneath it. So we decided we were going to start here and work our way up. We started out using some pretty big rocks, and the reason for this is we wanted to move pretty quickly on this wall. So in order to do that, we decided to use some of these bigger rocks that we had. This would help build it up quicker, and they didn't always fit right, so we actually had to take a hammer at them and kind of chip at them to get them to fit in the right way. So it took a little bit of pounding, but we actually got these rocks to fit in there pretty good. The 3-inch insulation you see against the wall here, we kind of just used as a spacer to keep the retaining wall off the barn, and this would prevent the barn boards from rotting out over the years. But we'll pop this insulation out after all the mortar sets up. After we had a solid first layer of new stone down, we busted out our laser level to figure out the minimum height we need for a stone wall to be. Now we were figuring for an 8-foot high ceiling on the first floor, which would keep the ceiling just above this metal bar mounted on the silo. For our last layer of rocks, we decided to use 2 guidelines on both sides of the wall, keeping them level and square as we built up the stones. These strings were key to working efficiently and quickly because they allowed us to basically keep the wall straight, plumb, and also to figure out the exact height we needed to be at. So once we had these string lines put up, we were able to fly. Now the trick to making our rocks work, because we had a limited supply, we decided to work on our outer face first, keeping the nice flat edges to the outside. And we'd keep the inside kind of hollow for now. And what we'd do is come back later and fill that in with all the leftover rocks and mortar. Now that we had the outside of the wall complete, we came back and filled the inside with mortar and leftover rocks. That was basically all the mortaring in the silo. That was probably several weeks of just straight mortaring between the silo and this retaining wall. So it sure felt good once we had that done. With that complete, we're ready to start forming up this concrete cap that we're going to pour on top of this wall. So to start that out, we decided we were going to mount a 2x4 right to the wall at the height that we wanted the bottom of this cap to be. And this 2x4 essentially would give it a lip, so that way any water or rain or anything coming off this cap would just drip down instead of dripping along the wall. And it would also give it a nice clean look, having that little bit of an overhang. We used 2x12s and mounted those directly to the 2x4s, and this would serve as our form for our 8-inch cap. We decided not to put 2x4s on the interior wall, as this will be covered up by our floor joists that we're going to be mounting to the cap. With all the forms screwed together, it was fairly solid, but just to be safe, we added some extra bracing to keep the forms square, and most importantly, prevent any blowouts. So we tied the rebar into the silo by drilling holes directly into the silo. Then we also cut some 6-inch rebar and drilled some holes down into the walls, and these acted like pegs that would stick up into the cap and essentially hold everything together once it's all poured. So the next day, we had the concrete truck there. They pulled right up. They were small enough. They backed in, and they just poured the concrete right into our forms. So we let the concrete harden for a few hours after we troweled it. And this was basically to let it set up, to take its form, and to give it some stiffness. And it was pretty cold out this night, so we were a little nervous taking off the form so early. And the reason we wanted to do this is so we could trowel the sides of the concrete forms to fill in those air voids that formed, because we did vibrate the forms as we were pouring it, but you can never get rid of all those air voids. So what we wanted to do, we wanted to pull the forms and just kind of work the concrete to fill in some of those voids. So we were a little nervous pulling these off, but luckily for us, all went well. Nothing fell apart. So we left the bottom 2x4s on till the next day just to give it some support still. So the next day I pulled those bottom 2x4s off, and all in all it went great. Turned out really nice. A few chips on the edges from when I pulled that off. It was still a little bit soft, but nothing major. Now with that being done, we're ready to begin building the roof and entrance area. For those of you who missed it, we actually did mill up our own lumber on this. So we milled it up, put it in the kiln, got it all dried out, and now we're going to try some old school joinery using some T-nons and some mortising. So make sure you hit that subscribe button to stay up to date and see what happens next. Remember to leave us a thumbs up if you like what you see, and leave your thoughts and comments down below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.